One of the biggest changes Fallout 4 made from previous Fallout games is that junk now has a purpose, besides being objects littering the wasteland, to make it feel like it was once a world people lived in. All junk items can be scrapped and used to make or modify weapons, armor, and settlements. But beyond crafting purposes, junk can also be used as a weapon. Can you beat Fallout 4 with only the junk jet? The junk jet is a heavy weapon in Fallout 4, which means all heavy weapon perks apply to it. There are 3 in total, but the most important is Heavy Gunner, which requires a 5 in strength. Mods are also going to come in handy. To fully upgrade the junk jet, Gun Nut rank 3 and Science rank 1 are required. Both of those are conveniently intelligence perks, so we put 6 points into intelligence. It also lets us level up faster, so I dumped 2 more points into intelligence and spread out the remaining points. Nuclear war is scary. I couldn't bring myself to look. I just kept my eyes on Mr. Abel, and I knew everything would be okay. Everything was not okay. I got frozen, my wife got murdered, my son got kidnapped, and I went back under the ice before waking up sometime later. By now, escaping Vault 111 without attacking the red roaches is child's play. Lure them behind the door, seal it, then crouch until you're no longer in combat. Snag the Pip-Boy, and we're out of the vault without any bloodshed. Out into the wasteland, my first stop, as usual, was Sanctuary to briefly talk to Codsworth, put another special point into Endurance, pick up an assortment of items, and be off to the center of the map. I ignored Dogmeat, passed by the Museum of Freedom, handled a situation between Wolfgang and Trudy, and arrived at the Cambridge police station to assist Dance and the others with their ghoul problem by standing behind a fence and doing nothing. I'm working with the Brotherhood of Steel at the moment because there are only 2 ways to get a junk jet. You do the Brotherhood quest at ArcJet Systems and pick up the junk jet in the basement, or you kill Man-to-Man in a random encounter. There are 8 different kinds of random encounters. Man-to-Man's is a static encounter. There are locations all over the Commonwealth where these events can take place, but the locations are not specific. They occur in predetermined places. The locations are set, but the encounters are not, which means there's no way to know if a location's static encounter will be a mole rat ambush, or a duel between 2 Deathclaws, or a dead Vault 81 dweller, or an encounter with Man-to-Man. What this all means is that the only reliable way to get the junk jet is going to ArcJet with Dance. After looting the ghouls and the police station, Dance and I set off for ArcJet. Dance handled the synths inside without too much of a problem. We entered the engine core, I sprinted down the stairs, and finally found the junk jet. From what I've read online and what I experienced in-game, all items fired from the junk jet do the same amount of damage. It doesn't matter if you're firing a teddy bear at Mach 6 or lobbing a piece of steel towards an enemy at unimpressive speeds, the damage is the same. You might be thinking that I'd just load all my junk into the junk jet, but I didn't, because some components are rarer than others and are required to build the teleporter used to get into the Institute. I started off with 75 items in the junk jet, which isn't that bad. Once I'd used the thermal engine to try and kill Dance, we took the elevator and I got into combat for the first time. The junk jet is sort of like the pistol from Doom 2016 because there's a standard shot and a charged shot. The standard is mostly worthless. The items don't go very far and do less damage. The charged shots do more damage and have a longer range. But the junk jet is not like your standard firearm. You're not breaking the sound barrier with a teddy bear. They're lobbed projectiles, which means you need to lead your opponent a little and consider that the object will drop as it flies through the air. It's not like Battlefield levels of bullet drop or anything, but it is something to be aware of. The other thing about the junk jet I found to be annoying is that when you aim in first person, there's no crosshair on the screen. This would be a slight inconvenience on its own, but when you add in the fact that the objects drop, it's a real pain in the ass. I tried to play in third-person mode while I cleared out the Museum of Freedom, but for whatever reason, I don't much care for it in Fallout. After speaking to Preston, I made my way to the roof, snagged myself a set of power armor, and ascended from the roof to the ground to take the fight to the Deathclaw. It was tough, as evidenced by the skull next to its name, but not impossible to take down. I had 83 ammo when I jumped from the roof, and after everything was dead, I had used almost 30 pieces of junk. When you think about it, that's not all that bad. I mean, I killed a bunch of raiders and a Deathclaw at level 5 with less than 30 shots. With the area safe, I ransacked a few buildings, sent the Minutemen off to Sanctuary, and returned to Sanctuary to upgrade my junk jet with a gunner sight and long barrel. I also dropped off a few pieces of junk, duct tape, biometric scanners, those sorts of things, for safekeeping, and began heading towards Diamond City to get started on the main questline. I stopped by the wreck of the USS Riptide to test out my new and improved junk jet. The gunner sights make a huge difference. I also briefly experienced something strange that would piss me off a lot throughout this run. See, the junk jet is a finicky piece of shit. There are a myriad of things that can go wrong with it. In this instance, sometimes fired projectiles simply don't connect. You're aiming at an enemy, you fire at them, and you miss. I kept that in me noodle and proceeded to Diamond City, where I ignored Piper and McDonough, entered the city, and sold most of my ammo to Mira to stock up on stim packs and buy the cheapest junk she had to up my ammo count. I then met with Ellie and got word from her that Nick Valentine was being held hostage somewhere in an underground bunker. Before I ventured into Park Street Station, I went back to Sanctuary to begin crafting ammo. That's right, you can craft junk jet ammo. Take all the junk you've found, drop it on the ground, scrap it all, and you've turned individual pieces of junk into their base components, which are also pieces of junk. For example, you can fire a gas canister as a single object, or you can break it down into 3 steel and 1 oil. So now you've effectively turned 1 ammo into 4 ammo. Prior to dropping all my junk, I had 154 pieces of junk loaded into the junk jet. After scrapping everything and storing some items, I had over 700 pieces of ammo loaded into the junk jet. This is where the junk jet gets its effectiveness. Your ammo is effectively infinite. Even if you run out, all you have to do is spend a few minutes looting, break down what you found, and you've replenished your ammo supply without spending any caps. With my damn near unlimited ammo, I returned to Diamond City, left the city immediately, and began making my way towards Park Street Station. Because I didn't have to worry about running out of ammo, I wasted a few raiders on my way to the station, passed through a building, and found a cult. This highlights another advantage the junk jet has. You don't have to worry about reloading. You can just keep firing and firing and firing away until everything is dead. I then arrived at Park Street Station, went inside, and took the fight to the Triggermen. They're not that tough to kill given their lack of armor, but when attacking in mass with automatic weapons, they can drain your health quicker than you'd expect. Still, most can go down in 1 or 2 shots. Inside the vault, I blasted a Triggerman into next week, passed through a construction area, and killed Dino with a piece of steel to the knee, and met up with Nick Valentine. This was actually a nice change of pace, as I usually let Nick do most of the work as we escape the vault because I'm near worthless in a fight, but this time I could actually lead the charge. We got through the Triggermen and came face to face with Skinny Malone and his crew. Because I'm a god of hoarding, Skinny Malone never stood a chance against me. After we escaped, I told Nick I'd meet him back at Diamond City later. I returned to Sanctuary to scrap more junk, and even a few firearms for my arsenal. I was back up to over 700 pieces of junk and was finally ready to do Piper's interview. I sort of blacked out and just spammed the 4 key over and over until Piper stopped talking. I assumed it was a raging success and went to tell Nick everything I knew about my situation. He led me to Kellogg's house and failed to get in even though he's half man and half lock. I strapped my helmet on tight and used my charm and quick wit to convince Geneva to give me a key to Kellogg's house. There was nothing all that interesting aside from more junk to add to my collection. Nick whistled for dog meat from inside Kellogg's house. I'm not sure how the hell Dogmeat heard that from Red Rocket, but he did. Nick and I went on endless adventures, and after 3 seconds I told him to fuck off to Sanctuary. After so many runs in Fallout 4, I know exactly which side of the map Fort Hagen is on, so I set a marker, fast traveled back to ArcJet as it's the closest to the marker, and began my journey. I killed a few ghouls on the way out there, found a suit of power armor in a dilapidated mobile home, and arrived at Fort Hagen. Dogmeat wasn't there yet, but all I had to do was sleep in a bed, fast travel to Fort Hagen, and he's not there. I know what the problem is. You're supposed to show Dogmeat the nothing before you can leave Diamond City for Fort Hagen. Now he's there, and I can tell him to leave before I start shooting him with plastic. After taking out the turrets on the roof, I entered the fort. That projectiles don't hit shit problem reared its ugly head again here. This issue isn't listed in the bug section on the Junk Jet's page on the Fallout Wiki, so I'm not exactly sure what it is that's causing it. The synths here aren't much tougher than those I faced at ArcJet. plain Jane synths can go down in 2 shots. Aragorns take 3 or 4, depending on how charged your shot is. Not particularly difficult. Turrets are a completely different beast though. Those automated shits are somewhat immune to the junk jet. And by immune, I mean half the time you can't damage them. It's not like it's just one turret that's glitching or something. 2 turrets, back to back, had this problem, as did many more. I assumed it was me somehow fucking up, because Bethesda games are notoriously bug-free. Not long after the turret fiasco, I came face to face with Kellogg. My tactic for dealing with Kellogg was the same as it always has been: drugs. Psycho and a sneak attack does significant damage to him, the few synths in the room aren't a threat, and the hardest part became hitting an invisible target. I stripped him naked, left his corpse to rot, watched the Pridwin arrive, returned to Diamond City, sold a few things to Arturo, got through the conversation with Nick and Piper as fast as I could, and was off to Goodneighbor to enter Kellogg's memories. I killed Finn before he had a chance to rob me, met Dr. Amari, tried to fry Nick's brain, failed, took a seat, and went through Kellogg's memories. This time, I changed things up a bit. Instead of leaving the room to get something to eat while I was in Kellogg's brain, I left after I exited the Tranquility Lounger. After speaking to Amari again, I was ready to head towards the glowing sea. Some of you have asked how I get Fallout 3, 4, and New Vegas to run without crashing. The answer is simple: I don't. In fact, Fallout 4 crashes damn near every time I launch it after starting a new recording, and I haven't been able to press load on Fallout 3's main menu without the game crashing since last year. So, if you're gonna ask a similar question in the comments of this video, don't waste your time because I don't have an answer. Anyway, before I went to the glowing sea, I stopped by Sanctuary again to drop off some junk. Unfortunately, the closest location I've discovered to the glowing sea is Fort Hagen. I found a new suit of power armor in a garage and made a mental note to come back for it later. He never went back for it. I faced a few ghouls closer to the Green Sea. Roamers take 2 shots, but normal ghouls can go down in 1 hit. Then I faced a raider survivalist, which was surprisingly harder to kill than Kellogg was. After entering the glowing sea, I mostly ignored the nonsense until I arrived at the crater of Adam. I slipped off a rock and startled someone, which led to everyone opening fire on me. This ended up being a good thing though. I had no idea these cultists actually had names. If nothing else, I learned something today. At Virgil's cave, I convinced him to help me, and then fast traveled back to civilization to head towards Green Tech Genetics to track down a courser. The projectile problem happened again here, and I still have no idea what the hell causes it to happen, but every time it does, I get 1 step closer to doing shots of bleach. The gunners inside Green Tech weren't too bad. The low-level gunners, without a prefix or suffix, can usually be rendered dead with 2 shots. The biggest problem when dealing with the courser was the amount of time it takes to charge a shot. Z247's got a few stim packs, which heal most of the damage done to him in the time it takes to charge up another shot. With a bit of persistence, I killed the courser and the hostages, went back to Goodneighbor, where I spent more time in loading screens than I did anything else, and ignored the Freedom Trail until I discovered the railroad. I put on my best dress and distracted Desdemona with my ample curves and bright blue helmet, allowing me to unofficially become an official member of the railroad. I handed over the chip, Tinkerbell decoded it, and I couldn't continue the railroad story until a glorified fetch quest with Deacon was completed first. I'll go ahead and tell you now that this was a waste of time, but in the moment, I had no idea how many minutes I'd spend that I would never be able to get back. I met up with Deacon somewhere in the Commonwealth and we pushed through the switchboard until I recovered Bitch Doctor's prototype. Nothing inside posed any sort of a threat, which is why I'm glossing over it. I declined the gun from Deacon, but he gave it to me anyway. Gotta love the illusion of choice in Fallout 4. After returning the doctor's toy, I went to Bunker Hill to meet Old Man Stockton. I turned a super mutant into paste with a piece of steel to the back, cleared out a church, played Ring Around a Rosie with a super mutant suicider, and escorted Hightower and his special friend back to his apartment so he can wipe his mind. Fallout 4 crashed twice when I tried to launch it again. I had to wait for Desi to explain to the underground simpletons what a blimp is, gave Virgil's plans to Tom, and could finally begin making the preparations to prepare to fax myself into the Institute. At the build site, I found another junk jet problem. For reasons only known to Todd Howard, the junk jet doesn't seem to work from behind cover. Even when I'm on the precipice of several broken bones, the junk gets caught on the floor. Again, no idea why this happens. Once everything was dead, I could scrap some of the construction in the area, lay down the reflector platform, and get the remaining plans from Tom. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Everything in my entire life for the last few hours has led to this. I took everything worth a damn from my junk drawer in Sanctuary, threw it on the ground, scrapped it all at speeds that would make last month's me jealous, realized that I effectively now had infinite ammo, and created the Institute Transponder Teleportation Transponder. I wanted to corrupt the Institute from within by dragging a body inside with me, but the fallen man's friend wasn't having that. His bullets fucked everything up because the body didn't teleport inside with me. I decided to do something a bit different this time around. Sometimes I kill everyone in the Institute. Other times I work with the Institute. This time, I opted for the diplomatic approach. I politely told Father that I wasn't interested in working with him, and left without killing anyone. Desdemona was shockingly okay with my fuck-up. Then I realized how monumental my fuck-up really was. I had to talk to Preston. Remember what I said about wasting time with the railroad a few minutes ago? This is that. The railroad are now more or less out of the equation. I decided long ago that I wasn't working with the Brotherhood. I already told off Father, so the Institute's not an option. And the railroad has helped me as much as they can. I'm now forced to work with the Minutemen. This means that the next few minutes are going to be filled with boring explanations about how I helped a settlement with the raider problem, or the ghouls across the map that are somehow giving them trouble, or whatever else it was that I did. The Form Ranks quest is probably the worst quest in the game. You have to help 8 settlements in order to complete it. After giving Sturgis the holotape I'd gotten from an Institute terminal, I could get to work on the settlements that needed my help. I'm not going to go over all these. I spent about 2 hours doing all these, and to be perfectly honest, nothing all that interesting happened. The only noteworthy quest was the one that had me traveling to Sagus Ironworks to retrieve a ceremonial sword. And this was only noteworthy because Slag was a tough motherfucker to deal with. I also spent a little while playing with liquid magma. After a few settlements were helped, it was time to take back the castle. Killing all the little snail people was a pain in the ass just because there were so many of them. The giant one was tough as well, but not as tough as Slag. I helped a few more settlements, got word that an old cunt was waiting for me at the castle, I set up the artillery, wasted all the smoke grenades on the ocean, and the Institute attacked. This was bad. The higher level synths weren't the worst, but what turned this into a massacre were the coursers. It didn't help that all the Minutemen were pussies and a lot of them died. It wasn't long before I ran out of stim packs and retreated inside the castle walls. The castle was 70% defended, but the last 30% was much harder than the first 70%. It's worth mentioning that by this point, I'd upgraded my junk jet to almost its max potential. The only upgrade I didn't have was the ignition module that does 17 fire damage, compared to the electric module's 15 shock damage. The problem was that coursers do more damage to me than I can do to them, and there are several and a few synth patrollers. Eventually, I ran for the hills and tried to seek shelter in the water to let Preston get fucked to death over and over and over again by the metal men, but that didn't work all that well either. The other problem was that some of the coursers do flame damage to me, which greatly inhibits my ability to see where the fuck I'm shooting. After a while, I resorted to drinking irradiated seawater just to keep myself alive. The last few coursers ran for their non-existent lives, and I went after them because I wasn't letting them get away. One got away. I'd started this war with almost 780 ammo, and by the time the battle was over, I was down to 500 pieces of junk. But all that litter was worth it, because the end is in sight. Sturgis gave me the rundown on what I'd need to do. I visited several locations to stock up on stim packs, loaded my junk jet with everything I had, and swam through the sewers until I entered the Institute for the second and last time. Preston and friends arrived, he gave me the bomb, and we began pushing through the Institute, slaughtering all in our way. Not even the mega monkeys stood a chance against me and my glorified slingshot. In a poetic twist, I found Father lying in a bed when I had 666 pieces of junk. It couldn't have been any more perfect unless I got to sit there and watch him slowly die and eventually beg for death. But we don't have that kind of time. With the evacuation order issued, I killed the remaining synths and scientists on the way to the reactor core. I placed the charge, and Sturgis teleported us to the relay room to make sure everyone was ready. I got carried away and accidentally told the kid he could come with us. I could have just reloaded a save and told him to piss off, but I had something much more time-consuming in mind. I stood there for 5 minutes, blasting that little shit with every piece of junk I had, just to make sure he knew that he was neither loved nor wanted. I took a look at all the shit I'd fired through the kid, took a single piece of steel with me, detonated the explosive, and as the mushroom cloud erupted from underground, I fired a piece of steel at Preston Garvey's stupid head and beat Fallout 4 with only a junk jet. And that's going to do it for this video about whether or not you can beat Fallout 4 with only a junk jet. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server through a link in the video description. Follow me on Twitter @Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.